Hey guys, welcome to Searching in Fearless Recovery Tarot. Before my channel gets too big or there's too many people on here and they're wondering why the hell I'm doing Recovery Tarot, I really wanted to talk about my story. I promise I'll make it relatively short, or if you want me to make it longer, just let me know in the comments. But here's just a gist and the reason and the inspiration behind Searching in Fearless Tarot and why I came to this conclusion. So I wanted to start talking about my growing up. I grew up in a very middle-class family. I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in Huntington Beach. It was very typical. It was, filled with sublime and beaches and anything you could think of. But I also grew up in an environment where my mom suffered from borderline personality disorder, which was really difficult. And that's a whole nother topic, really. And there's been a lot of forgiveness and conversations around that. So don't worry about that. But as far as it goes with growing up, I really grew up feeling like nothing was stable, nothing was common, because there was always fights that were breaking out in our house. And I never really knew exactly when those fights would stop or what I could say in order to make it better. And I kind of got into that theme of things of like, how can I make this better? How can I fix the situation, And that became a common theme throughout my life, where it developed into people pleasing and really being uncomfortable with any kind of confrontation, really trying to avoid that at all costs. It was very difficult. There's a lot of things from my childhood that I didn't understand until later when I started reading Children of Alcoholic Parents, or COA. When I started to read into that and started to understand, like, there were things about myself that I could never forgive, or I thought I could never forgive. Like, for example, when I was younger, I had a habit of lying to make myself seem better or more grandiose. I would tell people that I could play the violin. I would tell people all these things in order to make them see me in this spectacular light so that they would love me, And I truly felt like I was just messed up. I was fucked up. There was no way anybody was going to want to talk to me. After a while, I've made my amends, and those lies are gone and dead from the old days. But as far as it goes with the way that I was, I kind of knew early on in life that I was headed for disaster. I just had a feeling. I just kind of knew. I was the kind of person that grew up that didn't want to be anything like that. I didn't want to drink. I didn't like not being in control, which is kind of funny now. But my mom will swear. When I was younger, I used to say, I don't like to drink, I don't like to smoke, because I like being in control. I don't like not being in control. And then finally the breaking point came at 19, where I was just I was young. I just wanted to forget, and I wanted to be like everybody else. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, if I'm young and it'll just be a phase. It won't be a big deal. Even though in my soul, I knew that I had that tendency. I knew that would probably happen. But I just kind of gave in. I was tired. I was tired of feeling everything. I was tired of, I was tired of feeling like a piece of shit everywhere I went, because that was programmed into my brain when I was younger. I'd like to stress that I'm not here to point any fingers from anybody who raised me. I take accountability for everything that happened to me. I've already had these conversations. I've already closed out. I've already made my amends. We're still healing and growing throughout all of it. And I realize that there's a lot of trauma that I caused and a lot of trauma they caused. So it's kind of like we're learning to love each other where we're at, which is difficult in families, but it works. It does, honestly. Okay, so anyways, my gifts and abilities came in when I was 13. For the first time, I was flying across country. I'd never done that before, and I felt like when I got there, I was in a really nice area. I think I was in like Southern Pines or something. That was over 20 years ago. Shh, don't tell anybody. But I think I was in Southern Pines, and I felt like hundreds of people were staring at me wherever I went. And the back, like, the house was gorgeous. It had a forest in the back of it. I mean, it was prime time, but I just felt like there was something there that wanted to hurt me, or that I was being stared at, you know. And I was there for a week without my parents or anything like that. I was there by myself with my aunt and her husband, and it really fucked with me. It really fucked with me. Like I didn't sleep. I looked like I was nuts by the end of the week because I was so sleep deprived and crazy that I would just cry over nothing. Like, we'd be at the dinner table and I'd have to leave the room because I felt like I was gonna have a panic attack. And at 13 and being alone, you know, like not with my mom or my dad or anything, it was really jarring. It was really scary. And I wanted it to go away. I wanted it to go away. So I kind of suppressed everything that happened at that time. And just didn't want them. I'm like, if I have abilities, I don't fucking want them. I don't want them. If they cause these panic attacks and people think I'm crazy, because that just led to more, my aunt and her husband, who was very militant, like from the military, years in the military, right? Retired now, and they sat me down and they said, we think that you should go to Alateen because obviously these issues at home are bleeding out into your mental health. And I'm, you know, at 13, I'm not equipped. And, you know, I didn't know, I didn't understand what was going on. All I saw was that I was fucked up and that people were now concerned about me, because of my home situation. Right. So, there was a lot of shame. There was a lot of guilt that came with that experience. I had no idea what happened to me. I was very scared. I felt very alone for a long time, a long time. I didn't really talk about it after. It scared me so bad. Although throughout my life, I've seen things in the corner of my eye. I feel presence more than anything, and I can see it in my, I don't know why I'm pointing here, but I can see it in my third eye. So if I shut my eyes, I can kind of feel the presence and what's going on and what they need, right? But back then, I just thought I was freaking nuts, okay? So so fast forward, these abilities are starting to grow. I'm starting to see things in people. My story is starting to crack. All of the coping mechanisms that I fell into when I was within my family dynamics, I just broke. I just fucking broke. I was like, I'm done caring about people, and alcohol is the only thing that shuts it all off. I am just gonna drink. I'm gonna drink my fucking face off, and that's it. And maybe I die, and hopefully I die. You know, I mean, in reality, I didn't admit it at the time, but I was hoping to not wake up. And that was before I even started drinking. You know, I was heavily depressed. I just didn't know what was going on with me. I felt wrong. And any healthy relationships that I tried to get into, I would fuck up in a heartbeat, because I couldn't trust. I couldn't trust what was around me. I couldn't trust the people that loved me. Most of the love that I had known was conditional. So I didn't know that getting into arguments wasn't normal. I didn't know that someone can truly love you for who you are and see you for who you are. And although my parents tried, I'm not here to blame them or say anything bad about them. I think that they were wounded in their own right, in their own way. And they were just doing the best that they could while they had me, you know? But yeah, and I also think that everything happens for a reason. We all come here for a reason, blah, blah, blah. I'm not gonna get too into that. Okay, so anyways, so I'm drinking at 19. It gets heavy quick, very quick, like to the point where I'm partying, I'm hanging out. I like to say I did designer drugs, like, because I was in Southern California. So, you know, there was a lot of, I'm not gonna name them off. I'm not gonna go into the crazy stories because I'm not gonna war story here for you guys, but basically you get the gist of what was, you know, there was a lot. So I never really liked raves. I never really liked the drug scene. That wasn't really my thing, although like mad respect for people in oh my god, I'm forgetting the name. Oh my god, it's not AA, it's, wow. Anyways, mad respect for you guys in the sober community when it comes to drugs and stuff like that. Really, there's, anyways, so with the DUI, I got a DUI at 21. if this tells you anything, my blood alcohol level was 0.21, and I am 5'2", 120 pounds. So I was pretty fucked up. I was pretty fucked up when I got pulled over. And I was upset with myself. I felt like my life was over when I got my first DUI. I felt like my life was over. I stayed in my bed. I hid in my bedroom for weeks. And at the time, I had a narcissistic boyfriend who would bring me flowers, but at the same time tell me what a piece of shit I was and how he couldn't believe that I got this DUI. And every time he would give me a ride somewhere, it would be basically this lecture of how unresponsible I am, but how in love with me he was, and we could get through this together. And it was sick. It was very sick at the time. But that's the love that I thought that I deserved at the time. So I go through the DUI. I finally get rid of the ex that I was with for, I don't know, like roughly 2.5 years. And then 2012 hits. And I'm sure all of you probably have a story from 2012 or some kind of awakening from 2012, especially if you're attracted to my channel. But, So 2012 hit, and I started to realize I had a problem. Prior to that, my life just got really out of control. I started dating someone who was addicted to pain pills. I had no idea what that was, or like what being addicted to pain pills looked like. So I didn't really see like how bad it was until there was literally tinfoil in my apartment, and I didn't even know what the fuck the tinfoil was for, you know? And my life just kind of went unhinged after that. I ended up moving back in with my mom. I'm in my early to mid 20s at this point. I moved back in with my mom. I'm sleeping in the same bed with her. I'm not having any luck at my jobs because I can't stay sober for more than an hour at a time every day. And I was miserable. I was drinking. I had a full thing of vodka in my apartment before I moved out. I had a full thing of vodka constantly in the freezer, underneath the bed. I'd have bottles of wine hidden. I didn't drive. I literally did not have a license for 5 years because that's how much I did not trust myself. I knew that I would get in another DUI. I just did not trust myself at all. But I would have rather drank than drive. Like, I sacrificed being able to drive in a car so I could drink. Yeah, our logic sometimes, I swear. So I get into recovery. It's very on and off. When I started in the rooms back then, I didn't have a lot of people in my life that were trying to get, I didn't have a lot of people in my life. I didn't have people in my life that were sober. I didn't have people in my life that would really make me accountable for the bullshit that I did, you know? And there was a lot of fucking bullshit. So much bullshit. Yeah. So, I mean, most of the time it was either like men trying to hit on me in the rooms. It just wasn't my time. It was being 13-stepped and being kind of disgusted and not sure, right? So I remember I keep drinking. Vodka was my drink of choice. And when I drank the vodka, I remember I would hide it underneath the sink, and I was in the kitchen by myself one day, and I remember drinking the vodka and then randomly getting the thought, you know, if you stop drinking this, you're gonna get really, really sick. And that was the first time I had ever thought of anything like that. I had ever thought of detoxing or anything, and this was years after like starting to drink. And I had a shit ton of different groups of friends that would be drinking at different times in the day, so I could just call them whenever I wanted to, or whatever, you know, bullshit I wanted to do. Yeah, so yeah, it was a doozy. So anyways, I remember thinking in my head, if you stop drinking this, you're gonna get really sick. And I was like, whatever, you know, it doesn't matter. And coincidentally, literally within, I believe, 24 hours, I got pancreatitis. And I was so disillusioned. And pancreatitis is basically, for those of you who don't know what the pancreas does in the body, it basically filters out toxins, right? So pancreatitis is something that typically people who are older get, but I had messed up my toxins in my system so much, and I mean, I barely was eating. I was barely eating at the time. My stomach was distended. I looked like I was 3 months pregnant constantly. I was barely eating. I hated myself. I hated everything about myself. I basically had become my own self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. So then after my stomach started hurting, and with pancreatitis, it's like, it's just fucking painful. It's painful. So I remember okay, you guys are gonna laugh at me, but I had Del Taco, okay? I had Del Taco, I just gotten Del Taco, I put it in the fridge, and I waited, I don't know, a while for it, and I ate it, because I was super hungry, and there was nothing else in the fridge, and it was something quick to eat, right? When my stomach started hurting after I ate it, I was like, I mean, I was not in a good way at all. Like, I was drinking, ooh, I gotta sneeze. Whoa, okay. So I was not in a good way at all. I was, yeah. So I thought that I basically thought that the Del Taco was what gave me food poisoning, but after hours and then eventually days of throwing up and not being able to start to feel right due to anything, I went to the emergency room. It took them 12 hours to figure out what was wrong with me, because people my age don't really get pancreatitis, and if they do, they know what it is. And really the only reason why they found out, because I was withdrawing, was because I was in the emergency room for 10 to 12 hours, and the audio hallucinations started. I started to get visual hallucinations. My body started to shake uncontrollably, and they were like, holy shit, she's withdrawing from alcohol. And I had never told them how much I drank or anything like that. It was just revealed because that's how often I drank. And if I went 12 hours without drinking, that's how severe it got. So when I went into pancreatitis, I definitely don't recommend it. It was definitely a journey for me. It was incredibly excruciatingly painful. It was diminishing. They had to set me next to the nurse's station because they were worried that I was going to go in a seizure. I was not good. I was not in a good way. I was barely coherent for about 7 days. I wanted to take a shower, and when I did, I wasn't supposed to get up out of my bed. And when the nurses weren't looking, I got up out of bed and I started to take a shower. I was so confused about what I was doing. My shower, the water was completely freezing, and I believe that's what shocked my body. And so after I got done with the shower, I walked out of the bathroom, and I don't really remember much after that, but I basically went into a seizure. I fell to the floor and went into a seizure. That made me, I've never been so discombobulated. After it happened, I really didn't know what year it was. I didn't know who the president was. I didn't know any of that. I was just very like, damn it, I'm still alive. I'm not gonna lie to you. I woke up and I was like, damn it, I'm still alive. Okay, great, here we go. So then I ended up getting out of the hospital, and the first thing I did was the first thing I did when I got out of the hospital. Take a guess, guys. I'm sure you'll know. I used to love boxes of wine, and I got a glass, like one of those glasses, and I filled it all the way to the brim. I mean, not even 5 minutes of getting home, guys. Not even 5 minutes of getting home. And I had literally almost just died at the hospital. I just basically died. And they saved me, and I go home and I do it again, expecting a different result. Anyways, so you gotta laugh sometimes. You literally have to laugh at yourself. Like, that's how I've learned to heal and talk about all of this, is just laughing at myself. So yeah, I ended up moving out of California. I did the classic, if you move, maybe your story will change. But then I had to realize that you move with yourself. So I started recovery up in Oregon. I moved to Oregon from California to Oregon in 2014. Started recovery there. that was my first stint in rehab. Rehab, I went in, at that point I was really bad. I could barely function. I had alcohol all over my room. It completely reeked of alcohol. And I remember just looking around me and feeling so miserable and like, okay, I'm not dead yet, so I'm supposed to be here, but I don't know why I'm supposed to be here. I don't know, like, what's my purpose? I'm just a fuck up, you know? Like, most of I'm a little bit different in recovery, where a lot of people blame. I'm more, I take everything on the inside. I take everything and I feel like it's my fault. I feel like I'm the one that couldn't keep my family together, even though, like, that's nonsensical. So anyways, I moved up here, and then I found my family, my recovery family. I went to rehab, I believe, I went to rehab at 25, and then I had my birthday in rehab, turned 26. That was a really great stint. I really tried hard. I tried to be the best. If you guys were in rehab with me, you'd probably be annoyed. You would probably be annoyed, because my main thing was always asking questions and compliance. I wanted to be the perfect recovery person. You all know those annoying ass people. Sorry, I was one of them. Not anymore, but I was. So, yeah, that was good, but it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough, and I had a longer journey in front of me. So I was able to stay sober for a little while after I got out of rehab. But I ended up having the great idea of dating someone that I found from rehab. We tried to do it right, okay? We didn't start dating in rehab. We waited 3 months, and then he randomly emailed me and said, if I don't try, then I'll never know, so I'm gonna try. And then we were together. He ended up having borderline personality disorder, so it was like really fucked. And it really, really triggered something inside of me. It really just like, oh man. Because I still didn't know what borderline personality disorder was. And so for me, I thought that they were yelling at me because I was wrong. And because nobody had really corrected me, or I wasn't in a state in my recovery where people were like, you're not wrong. This person's a little unhinged. Like, it's them, it's not you, right? So that just further confirmed that I was a fuck up. That further confirmed that I shouldn't be here, right? In my mind. So I tried to work it out with him, broke up with him, tried to pretend like I was a normie and not an alcoholic. I ended up getting a job at McMenamins. If any of you know what McMenamins is, it's basically beer. It's basically a brewery. That worked out well. I ended up getting pretty drunk after a shift one day, and then getting into an accident on Highway 34. Driving my car into a ditch. I don't really remember how it happened. Trying to feel like if there's still shame around that. I don't think so. I mean, honestly, I think the shame that's carried around there is how reckless I was with other people's lives when I was doing it. Yeah, that's, unfortunately, I don't, there's always going to be that cringy, like, ugh, you know, when it comes to that, because it's not about me. It's about other people and how I could have really hurt someone in my selfish decisions. So I ended up getting a DUI there. I totaled my car. After I totaled my car, I was miserable. My whole face was broken open because it had hit the steering wheel. Yeah, even the cop, I was so gentle when they arrested me for my second DUI that he literally drove me home that night. He knew. I told him, I was like, I'm in recovery. I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not a normal person that can drink, you know. And I went into some heart-to-heart with the officer, and then he drove me home, and it was weird. It was weird because God works in weird ways. He kind of makes sure that you're protected even if you fuck up and make a shit ton of mistakes. So so I got the DUI. That was at 27. After the DUI, I basically went into like, okay, I need to fight this. If I'm gonna fight this, I need to actually fucking fight this. I need to stop acting like a child and move forward with my life. once I did that, I got pancreatitis again, and I was actually, I believe, 3 or 4 days sober when I got the pancreatitis. But pancreatitis is something where when you initially get it, you kind of always have to look out for it for the rest of your life after that. It's kind of like herpes, except it's not herpes. It can kill you because it's one of your major organs. Why herpes? I don't, okay. Anyways, so moving on, I get pancreatitis for the second time, meet my person. I had a friend in the rooms at that time. He was my first sponsor's son, and you know, it's magical how these people came into my life, because they saved my life, really, and they came in just the nick of time, really. I mean, at that point, I didn't really have any sober friends. I didn't know what to do. I felt really lonely. I was in another state. I just didn't know. And I found my partner at the time, who was my friend, and he sat in the hospital room with me when I was sick. Yeah, and I remember I was like, no, I don't want a boyfriend. I don't want a boyfriend. I don't, you know, you're like a brother to me. You're like a brother to me. Well, we ended up hooking up, like people do, especially people who are hurting, and I got pregnant. My first son, Micah. I was literally 6 days out of rehab when I got pregnant for the first time in my life. I was older. I was 27. I was 27 at the time. But I was like, well, I'm old enough, and let's do this, you know. It was a very scary conversation between him and I. He still wasn't sober yet, but I was, you know, I was pregnant, and that's what I had to do. I got a lot of ridicule during my pregnancy. Basically people asking me if I got pregnant to stay sober. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. That's a dream of mine that I thought would be beautiful, and it is beautiful in its own way, but it's hard to think about too. It's hard to think about. Yeah, so I got pregnant with my son. I was sober throughout the whole pregnancy. Everything went great. Don't hold your breath here, okay? Nothing crazy about that. But during that pregnancy, my partner, we weren't ready. We weren't ready. We loved each other, but we didn't know how to love ourselves. And we got through it as best we can. With Micah, he went into rehab about a month before Micah was born. And yeah, he went into rehab about a month before Micah was born, and then he got out I think 7 or 10 days before Micah's actual birth, which Micah was breech. So they wanted to, which breech means that he's basically sitting Indian style, crisscross applesauce in my fucking belly. Huge kid. He was 8 pounds, 10 ounces, I swear. I don't know what it is with big babies and me, but God's funny sometimes, I guess. So, with Micah, it ended up really, really beautiful and really harmonious as it could be while two people are trying to find themselves and have a newborn. There wasn't a lot of fighting. There wasn't a lot of toxicity, you know, like in that regard. I just felt emotionally lonely. He was very vacant, my partner, and it was painful, you know. When I was pregnant, I always had this vision of like getting my feet rubbed and, you know, being like told I was beautiful. And it's not that he didn't feel those things. It's just that he wasn't comfortable expressing those things because, and I'm not making excuses for him, I swear. He just wasn't. He didn't even love himself. Yeah. So, it was just a very lonely experience. I remember going to California pregnant with Micah and, you know, kind of being unsure of where my life was headed, you know, and then coming home and my friends were, you know, looking at me and touching my belly and, you know, giving me all the love and support I needed. And then I'd come home and it just felt very lonely. And it's not because he was angry. It's not because it was because he needed to resolve issues within himself. I think loving someone when you come from a background like we had is really tough. And it's really hard when you're the first one to get sober not to go into the mother role and try to fix things. You know, that's kind of the way that I am. That's the paradigm I took on when I was younger. So it was a lot of like me being in my head and waiting, you know, waiting for the emotional vulnerability I was looking for. But what I didn't realize is that how can you ask for emotional vulnerability when you don't have it yourself, you know? I wasn't very clear on what I needed and what I wanted. So, okay, that's part one. I don't know why I'm putting two. That's part one. I'm gonna put the next part up next week for you guys, or maybe tomorrow, who knows. Anyways, that's the start of my origin story. Part 2 is coming soon. Bye.